they wanted to buy, I don't know, Fartcoin. They've heard really good things about Fartcoin from all their friends. We've shown things like latency and end-to-end latency and throughput. We are top players in the blockchain game. I think the goal of Decibel and the goal of Aptos on the side of this trading side, this global trading engine, is to really not just that side, not just the perps. Anything you can do in the TradFi world, you can potentially do more efficiently if everything was done in this composable on-chain way. And so there's actually a lot more that can.
Hello everyone, my name is Chris Kim, and today we have Kent White here. Kent, you want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Yep. Kent, I'm an engineer here at Aptos Labs. Have been here for, I guess, mostly since the beginning. Been working on a bunch of things. In the beginning, kind of started out with, we needed a wallet, so built Petra, and that kind of had been a thing that we continued to build on Aptos Labs side, and have built a bunch of other products and have been involved in a lot of different things that we've built here over the last 3 and some years. Before that, I was at Facebook, and that's kind of how I got in touch in the beginning with the whole Decibel, but the whole Aptos Labs front. But I guess today is more about Decibel, so we can focus on right,
that. Because that's the product that you're working on now.
Yes.
Right?
So about, I don't know how many months ago now, kind of we started the initiative of wanting to build a product really like great and in-house to some extent, as well as partnering with people externally. And so shifted over to be full-time. Now my kind of full focus is on making Decibel, making Decibel as successful as it can be. And yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Well, you have a lot of experience working on other products, so I'll be looking forward to learning more about Decibel from you in this podcast. So let's start by just asking you, what is Decibel? And I want you to answer it in a way where maybe, do you have kids?
I do not have kids.
No kids, but maybe some, I don't know, maybe grandparents. Like, let's say you're explaining Decibel to your grandparents and you're trying to get them to use it. How would you explain this?
Well, that one's I haven't been asked how to explain this to my grandparents before. I used to have a saying for Petra of like I wanted my mom and my dad to use it, but grandparents is even more difficult.
Right. That's why I asked you.
So
I'm pushing you here.
You are. So if I was to do this, and my grandparents don't know anything about crypto, so I'd probably focus more on kind of even what perps are to start out with, and kind of go from there on why Decibel is potentially even better than kind of what traditional perps are, which my grandparents using perps would be crazy. But so I'll start with perps. So maybe the way I would say it is if I was to go over to Grandma Kent and say you should use this product, I'd tell them, let's say that they wanted to buy, I don't know, Fartcoin. They've heard really good things about Fartcoin from all their friends, all their other grandparent friends. But they only had, they didn't have much money. They have $10. But they really are all about Fartcoin, and they think it's going to be big, and they want to make that money go further. They can, use leverage, something like perps, and do like, 10 times, 20 times leverage with their $10 and invest in Fartcoin as if they had $100 instead of $10, and thus get a lot more excitement out of it, as well as potentially more gains and all those things. And so that's kind of a baseline of kind of what has really popped off in the crypto market on perps. Hyperliquid is a great example of something that's taken perps, done it really well. There's a bunch of things we can talk about on how Hyperliquid is done well. But taking that formula and built around it even more, and they're even building an ecosystem around kind of what they've built from perps to spot to now a bigger ecosystem.
Right.
And kind of our side is a little bit different to where we have an ecosystem, we have decentralization on Aptos, and we also have great infra. And now we're building this product on top of it, and this infrastructure, even this more trading infrastructure on top of it, which should hopefully we can kind of leapfrog Hyperliquid in some way, but that's a long road and some high hopes. But yeah, I'm sorry, Grandma, for rambling there a bit, but yeah, that'd be my answer.
No, that makes sense. So basically, I can trade tokens with more money than I have. basically.
Yeah, and I think that's the main driver in where my grandma would be interested. But there's actually a lot to it, and it gets more complicated than just just perps. I think the goal of Decibel and the goal of Aptos on this side of this trading side, this global trading engine that gets tweeted a bunch, is to really not just that side, not just the perps, but a kind of global and anything you can do in the TradFi world, you can potentially do more efficiently if everything was done in this composable on-chain way.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a lot more that can possibly be done there. A good example is something like multi-collateral. There's a few things like Drift on Solana that have started multi-collateral, but I think it's a good example of like how this composable world works in something like a DEX instead of something like a centralized exchange or even like TradFi. So for example, I enjoy some Bitcoin. Bitcoin's a good deposit of value. Maybe I want to use Bitcoin to trade on some coin or some stock rather than using kind of USD. And there's various reasons why I would want to do that. There's inflation. Like I'm losing money by holding USD, but I'm potentially have a better store of money by being Bitcoin, and why can I use Bitcoin to then trade rather than having to transfer over to Bitcoin and then transfer over to USDC from my Bitcoin and then start trading with it. And then potentially when I'm done trading, maybe I don't have any more trades, or the trades worked out and I've sold, then going back and having to transfer back to Bitcoin is this long process that also incurs slippage and all these other things, which is very capital inefficient. So it's bigger than that, Grandma, but we can focus on, I think Perps is a good first step into DeFi.
So other than Perp DEX and multi-collateral asset, what else is Decibel?
Yeah, so I think this goes a bit into kind of why we think that Aptos and Decibel can win in this play where centralized exchanges are getting a ton of volume. TradFi is potentially moving into more of these type of things, as well as we have huge players like Hyperliquid and a ton of other players joining the field. And I think that there's a lot of reasons. I'll try to stick to a few to start off with, but one is the differentiator of Aptos. And I think from the beginning, we've always kind of said Aptos is going to be a really great infrastructure, and we've proven it in different ways. There's of course trade-offs, and some chains might be better in some nuanced version of this or some nuanced metric. But we've shown things like latency and end-to-end latency and throughput. We are kind of top players in the blockchain game, and so it makes sense that if people are trying to find a place to build the best product on, Aptos can be that. And so that's just the pure infrastructure and throughput and performance side. On top of that, we spent the last 3 some years building kind of tooling on top of it to make Aptos really good. So this goes into things like keyless, which allows you to do social sign-in, which you can do on other chains, but on keyless it's done natively, it's more efficient, it's safer, it's more decentralized. And so that is one piece. On top of that, which I'm sure we'll get into eventually, is the accessibility of this. Hyperliquid, I don't know if you've when I originally went into Hyperliquid, it was this really interesting battle of getting my USDC into Hyperliquid, and it's surprisingly difficult in different ways, or you have to do it in a certain way. I think they've gotten better in different ways by introducing unit and bridges and stuff like this, but it's still pretty bad. And so other tech that we've been building on this whole account abstraction trend over the last few months is cross-chain accounts, to where I have USDC in my Phantom wallet right now in Solana, and we're gonna make it, and we can maybe show a video at some point, but you can just connect your Solana wallet to Decibel, hit deposit, and your USDC on Solana goes in and transfers to Aptos, and then whenever you sign in with Phantom, you can get it.
What you're saying right there is users, even if they don't have an Aptos wallet, and Decibel is a DEX built on the Aptos blockchain. If they have a Solana wallet, like Phantom wallet, they can just use that and use Decibel without having to create a new Aptos wallet or bridge assets over through using like a separate bridge, anything like that?
Yeah, so I think there's two things of this, and we can get into the technical if you want to. Sure. I think this is also a great thing for different Aptos ecosystem projects to be aware of and can also use. But the idea is that, exactly what you said. You have a Solana wallet. There's plenty of people on a Solana that don't have Aptos wallets, sadly, but maybe one day. And they can just connect their Solana just like as they would connect to some Solana DApp, and they will get a Aptos account behind the scenes that's associated with their Solana wallet. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the idea. And then when they're transferring USDC is really great. There's other ways you can do this, but USDC has kind of CCTP, which allows you to kind of transfer your USDC across. So it will burn your USDC on Solana and then go to Aptos. And then the same way on the other side, you will, if you want to withdraw your USDC from your Decibel Aptos account, you would, transfer back out to your Solana wallet. And so you can easily transfer between these two without much being lost.
Really? So what you're basically saying is, on the user's perspective, they don't really have to worry about, what blockchain is this DEX built on? They're just using their wallet that they're familiar with to use this DEX, right? But behind the scenes, it is using Aptos for executing all these trades and also bridging over USDC. It's all happening behind the doors. And as a user's perspective, there really isn't much that they need to consider. They're just using a DEX.
Yeah, they're just using their DEX, and there's a ton of users on Solana, there's a ton of users on MetaMask, Ethereum, and all of them can do the same thing. And so this really goes into something bigger than just Aptos, and this goes into kind of why we think it's worthwhile to put a lot of effort here, is because we're not competing with other, there's a bunch of DeFi protocols on Aptos. We're not there's some competition there, sure, but there's this bigger pie to be had on the entire Web3 side of,
and beyond Web3,
and so that goes into the Kia side. But even in the Web3 side, making it so easy to just use a product, and that's kind of what Web3 kind of is, this interesting place where you have these maxis on certain things, but there's all these products that are trying to gain traction. And so cross-chain accounts is a great way for it just to be about the product, rather than being about kind of I only have Solana, I only have Aptos, I only have X Fartcoin or something, right? And I actually is okay, I want to do this. Decibel is the best place to do this. And now it's great because you're introduced to Aptos, you're introduced on some of the things that you can do here, and we can kind of go into the future of Decibel, but there's much more you can get from there. And so I think it's great. And to your other point on non-Web3 users, like my grandma, I think this is where it kind of Kilos goes into play, where they don't even want to know about, they don't want to have to download a Phantom wallet even. And so this goes into, you just use your Google, you sign in, and maybe you have to, unfortunately now at some point, I think we can get to the point where you don't need this and you can just deposit something else, but you can go and deposit USDC from your Coinbase account, or from, ask your grandson to send you some USDC onto your Decibel wallet, and then you have it. It's tied to your Google account or your other social login.
Wow. So you guys really thought hard on the user experience side, especially on the onboarding part, because that's one of the biggest friction points of all these Web3 dApps, right? It usually requires a wallet for that specific network. So installing a wallet itself is a friction, but now you're enforcing the user to install the specific wallet for that network, and the friction doesn't end there. You also need to get some native token to pay for gas, USDC, whatever, right? And usually it's not as easy as just logging in and start using the app. It takes at least a couple hours, even a couple days, if you don't have an exchange set up to buy these crypto.
It's scary too. I mean, it's scary transferring all this around. I think I remember it's even of these nice confines of something like Coinbase, and then you transfer out your USDC, but then you have to transfer okay, what network of USDC, and it gets really complicated, to be honest, and it gets really scary for people that aren't super comfortable with this, and it's really hard to even be comfortable, even if you do know what's happening. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. There's wait times behind the transfers. I've been in the position of oh, I just sent it, it's not there yet, and then just hitting refresh to make sure it comes. So I think all those things are like, it's pretty scary to transfer things out, because there's like in crypto, there's the beauty of crypto, how it's all decentralized, but there's also some pain, and like these things are, I can't do chargebacks and stuff like this, and so you want to be really sure and like make sure it works. And so yeah, I mean, I think the accessibility is one of the biggest points here on any DApp, and that's why I think that when we talk about cross-chain accounts and keyless, I think there's a lot of room for DApps on Aptos to continue to innovate and bring more people in, and I think that's where we're trying to build into Decibel as well. But yeah, that's also only one part of it. Like the UX of getting people in is like, you want people to get in, sure. Then you also have to deal with explaining how this whole trading mechanism works, and it's a whole nother front that I think we'll share out as we go, and kind of we're trying to think of it as a product that people can use, and one, serve advanced traders that want to use kind of this crazy high leverage trading, but also those casual users that we've made it accessible for them to get in the platform. Now let's make it accessible for them to actually use the product to the fullest.
So since we were talking about the differentiator of Decibel for building on Aptos, what are some other Aptos protocol features that it's leveraging, that it's taking advantage of to kind of provide this unique experience that other DEXes on different networks can't provide?
Yeah, so there's probably a lot here, and we can maybe dig in at some point on like later content as well. So I mentioned some of the UX gains. I think there's of course recent decrease in block times, and I can talk about why that's important. I think the Aptos Labs team is going to continue to kind of push block times down to kind of a target under 20 milliseconds, which is really impressive and very insane. And I think it's also, you see a lot of claims from a lot of people, but I mean, there's like this is productionized, this is decentralized, and we're going to go down and down and down. And I think we'll probably have Sasha and Balaji kind of talk about this a bit more as we go forward, but there's some really cool things that we're doing to enable that to happen. And low block times, as well as low latency in general, is really important. On one side, on the general website UI user, it's really important because you want to see your trade go through instantly, and you don't want to same reason why I was saying it's really disconcerting when you send your money off and you have to wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
When you're making a trade on 50 times leverage, you don't want any move up and down is really scary, and so you want when you press that button for it to actually happen in instantly.
So before we move on to other topics, let's kind of talk about why fast execution time is so important for a perp DEX like Decibel. Could you tell us a bit why it's important for average users like me and Grandma, and also why it's important for some high frequency traders, maybe enterprises or professional traders?
Yeah, and so I think I was kind of going into that a little bit on the user side of you are doing this very potentially financially important decision of pressing this button and submitting a trade, especially at that high leverage point, and so you want it to happen really quick. And there's level to it. I'm not sure actually after under 100 milliseconds where we're at how much that will matter. But ultimately, it may to an extent, and I think it feels good that you're trading at the fastest possible place, and I definitely would want to trade at the fastest possible place. So there's that aspect of it. So when I press a button, your position shows up, and if you have to wait, even a second of you pressing a button and your position showing up and changing up and down on your P&L, that's stressful. So for a standard user, important to a level for sure. When we go down to 20 milliseconds and lower, it gets probably some wins for users, but this goes more into market makers and high frequency traders. On the market maker side, and having a good platform for market makers is important because market makers kind of provide liquidity in different ways. And as a user, you want high liquidity. And so having this low latency kind of world kind of allows market makers to change their positions more quickly. So if the price is changing, they're able to like, follow that price more closely, so that they're able to provide better liquidity for users on the end state. So you always have like a more accurate, the most precise like kind of trade you can make as a user. You're hitting this market maker, which is continually following very tightly to the price, and that price changes like dramatically, very quickly all the time. And so it's important to be as low latency as possible in that sense. Same way for kind of API traders and people making like trading strategies on chains and things like this. You want to you're trying to be as fast as possible. You're trying to react to things as fast as possible. As like if I'm creating like this trading strategy on chain, and so you want this to kind of happen instantly as well. So you don't get caught of like, oh, actually, I just missed this last 100 milliseconds and the price moved this much and I just put all my money in there and now it's like I wish I had that 50 milliseconds left. It's very important that these things are trading, especially at high leverage.
So we talked about what Decibel is, some of the unique features that it enables because of it using all these protocol features that Aptos provides. Why are you guys building Decibel? And what does this mean for the Aptos DeFi ecosystem?
Yeah, so I'll take it in two parts, I guess. So your first question of why we're building Decibel. I touched on it a little bit earlier, but the idea is that Aptos needs a bunch of users. We have the tech. We have great tech. We continue to build great tech, and we will continue to far into the future on kind of pushing Aptos and blockchain as far as it can go. But we really need to kind of push outside of just Aptos and like gain this user traction. We know that Aptos is, we have this really strong belief that Aptos is the best place to kind of do these very, very important trades, very quickly, very, in a very protected and secure way that can't be censored and can't be, taken advantage of by others. And so we have that, and we think it's the best place to do it. We just need to show it, and so that goes into like, if we're the one building the chain, we can also kind of optimize this as fast as possible to where I'm right across from Sasha. I can talk to Sasha about how we can do this as fast as possible. We're like talking about optimizing the smart contract and do this in the best way possible to make this a really great experience. And I think when you're talking about building it from like the ground up to deep infrastructure to kind of just Perps infrastructure to actual UI UX, I think it's important to like kind of think about it holistically. And this goes into even like, when I'm talking about this bulk order situation, like we're talking with like, I'm straight across from the people that are actually building the infrastructure that takes advantage of, right? And so it's important, and that's why we think it's like something that we can, grow Aptos by doing all of this. And then why it's important to the DeFi ecosystem on Aptos, which is it's doing great. There's more protocols coming online. There's protocols doing really well, and making money already and being profitable. I think there's very different ways. There's various different ways this all ends up. But ultimately, the goal is to bring more users into Aptos ecosystem. And so, like goes back to cross-chain accounts. Our goal is not necessarily to take users away from someone like Merkle or Ekiden. Our job and our goal is to grow this pie, so that it makes sense that all these different ecosystem partners can also take advantage of those same users. A great example is like we went through and like talked to a ton of ecosystem projects on like what they can do. Not all of them are like directly like Perps, DEXes or anything like that. There's borrow lend markets. There's a ton of very interesting things going on in DeFi ecosystem on Aptos particularly, and they want to be a part of it. Like they want to see like, okay, potentially could you do basis trading on this? Could they like be a trading strategy? Could you even multi-collateral? Could you use your more markets like token on Aptos to trade? And I think all of these things are not on Aptos, on Decibel to trade. And I think all of these things kind of working together is going to be a really cool thing of what happens over the next year, where Decibel launches, and we see kind of the Aptos ecosystem kind of like take full effect on this.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a similar case where, let's say there's a street and there are 2 restaurants and maybe a cafe on that street. They all not doing well because there's not a lot of traffic on that street. But let's say this amazing like Michelin star restaurant comes into that exact same street. And now suddenly there's more traffic because people are more likely to walk there to go to that restaurant. And because there's more traffic, the restaurants and the cafes near that popular restaurant also do better. So I really see the way you explained it seems like Decibel is really trying to grow the pie, invite more users, external people to the Aptos ecosystem in a seamless manner with the cross-chain account and keyless. And also another beauty of DeFi is composability, right? Maybe let's touch on that a little bit because composability is a big word. And when you just say composability, it doesn't really mean much. So when I say composability, my understanding is that because all these DeFi applications are on the Aptos blockchain and it's using the same network, it's really easy to hop around these different applications. You lend money on this platform, and then you use that lend money elsewhere, and then maybe a Perp DEX like Decibel, but other maybe AMM swaps if you prefer that, and you can just like kind of travel around these different applications, right? And I think that's so fascinating because I think we take it for granted because we're so used to that by being in Web3 for such a long time. But if you're thinking outside of the Web3 scope and think about the traditional finance services that are available to people, that is not something you can do, right? They're all siloed. They all have you gotta deposit some money into this account and you can use that money only on that platform. And if you wanna take that money elsewhere, you gotta first liquidate your positions, take that out to your bank account and then move it to somewhere else.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of friction point there, right? So maybe could you share a little bit about like composability and why Decibel plays a role in that?
Yeah, I think it goes 2 ways too, right? Like I think we're thinking of it, and we've talked in this aspect of growing the pie, and I think it's important, and we can continue to talk about it. But it goes the other way too, to where if someone comes on board to start, we have this great application. I mean, Aave launched recently, and people want to put some money into Aave. That's great because that means that they can then use their money they're putting in Aave very easily and move it over to Decibel and start trading, and vice versa. I think there's even and this kind of goes into the future, I think, of this whole composability. There's really tight things that we can do here. So for example, I can imagine a world where you are putting money. I put $1,000 into Decibel. Maybe I'm making one trade where I think this one coin is going to go up, so I'm gonna make a really quick trade, but then I close it, and I made money or lost money. It doesn't matter. Then I still have $1,000 or whatever the profit of that trade was, and I'm probably going to leave it there until I have another trade because maybe tomorrow I'll have this other idea, or I hear some crazy thing is happening on Hyperliquid, so I want to long hype for the next day.
Sure.
Well, what is that money doing? That money's doing nothing right now. But what if we could just, that money inside of your, Decibel account can just be used directly to kind of lend out and start getting APR on it. So Aries, Echelon have, 5 to 10 to, I don't even know what the percentage is on currently on their APR. That's great. I mean, you're making money on just waiting for your next trade. And I think that's just a small piece of it where you can imagine this goes farther and farther to where you can take advantage of all these different strategies to make money, which is essentially why a lot of people are in this blockchain space and just do it in a very efficient way. On Hyperliquid, there was some stats that came out that a very high percentage of people are actually losing money on Hyperliquid because they're just not they're not making the right trades or whatever. But I think we can, with this composability and with all these different ways to make money on Aptos and this kind of thriving DeFi ecosystem, we can just be more profitable for our users by being very composable and be able to use your money more efficiently, to where you just have a lot more room to make money on Aptos than you potentially do on a very kind of centralized product.
Is that kind of your team's vision for Decibel, to be completely connected with the entire Aptos ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think we can't build everything. I think we're not meant to build everything anyways. Like, this is kind of the vision of Web3 in general, is like
Right.
everything take advantage of everything else, to where we can like really make everything more efficient and make everyone kind of have a better experience on Aptos than you would on a centralized exchange, or on even TradFi, or even like Web2 world. So definitely kind of wanted that to be a large part of the future of Decibel. I think there's more things to be brought to Decibel. I think there's a ton of interesting space in RWAs. That perps and spot are this thing that have grown and done really well in crypto. But there's a lot to RWAs, and even when I'm saying doing these things more efficiently and trading crypto more efficiently is one thing, but you should be able to trade other things more efficiently too. And so I think our eyes are not just on making this DeFi world perfect, but also bringing a better experience to even things that are done on TradFi. So if you could, Solana has this idea of like a on-chain stock market, or on-chain Nasdaq. I think it's a pretty good idea, and a pretty good vision for some things. It's very vague and broad, but I think there's a real possibility of being able to trade all these different assets across the real world, across Web2, across TradFi, as well as the current decentralized world.
So far we've talked about Decibel's technical features, because it's using Aptos, fast execution, amazing tech. But we all know that tech is not enough to win, right? What's kind of the success strategy for Decibel? What do you have in mind to bring this product to users?
Yeah. So we talked, touch on a little bit on the accessibility. Definitely a very important part of just making it accessible. And you can do that with tech as well.
Yeah, which is big.
It's big.
It's huge.
But you still have to, once they get in, you still have to
Exactly.
use the product, right? So UX is a big portion of that, and teaching people how to trade, and making sure that they are doing the things they want to do there, and even showing them what they can do is a part of it. But I think ultimately the interesting part, and the way that products grow in the Web3, and if you look at the successful ones too, community is a really big part of it, and having the community be a part of kind of the platform is really important. I think this goes to Hyperliquid, or Hyperliquid had really good tech, it executed really well, but it also rewarded the community really well, where people are into Hyperliquid, they feel like part of the product, and they feel like they own part of it, which they do. I mean, they had an airdrop that was super successful, and probably one of the most beneficial to users ever. And I think there's other ways to do that as well, but I think it's a huge part is making the community feel like they're part of building the product. And it's especially in Web3, it's kind of that's the ideas. And I think it's great in the case of Aptos too, because we already have this existing community, and how do we take that community with us on this ride, and hopefully grow that community to be even bigger,
Right.
And give them something to cheer on, and give them something to kind of be a part of as it grows. And so I think we have a good opportunity here on Aptos that was very different from just we're not at completely cold start. We're definitely cold start to an extent of this is a new product, but luckily we aren't just a brand new
Right.
name out of nothing, where we have this existing community. We hope that it grows bigger, and we want to make sure that that community is feels like part of this product. And so I think that's a big part of it. So I'd say two sides. One is building this UI and UX that is just better, on top of this just better tech. And then another part is like making sure the community is part of that and goes forward with the product so that kind of we build for we're not even just building for the right people, but also they are part of kind of winning with us. So we can kind of, do it all together.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Community is one of the most important aspects of Web3 products. And it's also what Web3 enables, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the times, the traditional way of building products is you build a product, people pay to use that product or you just use the product, but that's it. It's kind of like a one-way relationship. Whereas with Web3 applications, because it's more transparent, it's decentralized, it's open, having a community that kind of builds with the product. Now the product and the community has never been closer, I feel like.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of advantage to that as well, because any good product will need user feedback, right?
Yeah.
And getting feedback is probably one of the hardest thing to kind of get the users to give you. They will, if they don't like the product, they will just leave usually, right? So it's really great that Decibel is focusing on the community, trying to reward them and kind of build this product with them. So how can the community get more involved with Decibel? So right now I know that Decibel is on DevNet, right? It's closed beta, right?
Yep.
And so I guess what are the plans for kind of inviting more people to try out the product and maybe be of that early beta tester giving feedback?
Yeah. I think, and I think we're just getting started, right? Like, I think there's a lot to do to build the community. I think we wanted to kind of announce Decibel pretty early, so that not only the community was ready for it, but also even builders around Aptos were kind of like aware of what was happening and what we were building, and kind of like when we're saying global trade engine, like we want to move towards that direction, and so it was important to announce early. But we are early, and I think if I was to speak to a community member, I would say like, wait, give us a little bit of time, and we're going to try to get you more and more involved, and hopefully along the ride, we're going to get everyone involved. I think right now, like you said, there's like a closed DevNet period to where, we're building, as we speak, code is being committed all the time. So things are breaking, things are getting better, and things are changing, and we're building kind of more features to be like kind of feature complete. On what we want to go to testnet and mainnet, and so like we invited kind of builders to see what we're doing. So if you're like a builder that hasn't got a code, like feel free to reach out to me if you're like kind of interested on building on Decibel in the future, or kind of want to be a bit of part of the team a bit more. On the other side of like if I was like a community member now getting ready to just be a user of Decibel, or really want to be involved as a user, I think Discord and Twitter are great starts. I think there's some cool things going on in the Discord right now. Some competitions on both trading competitions as well as different interesting story competitions that are happening. And I think I would go join that and get involved. I think that also is like a good place to hear the latest on what's happening. I'm in there, a bunch of the devs are in there, as well as kind of people that are kind of building up the community already. We're very early. You're here early, so get in and be a part of it. So yeah, I would say those things. And then as far as timelines on like next steps, we're driving hard towards testnet, and testnet's kind of like where we think it's really important to get user feedback,
of course.
As well as test out the platform to like see how far we can go and how much we can push. And so testnet is going to be really a place where we just want to get as much people in as possible and try to gather that feedback so that we can kind of evolve the product more and more.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot today. I mean, we talked about doing this kind of podcast to talk about Decibel. But I personally just wanted to do it because I wanted to learn. And I definitely learned a lot. And
nice.
I'm definitely more excited about Decibel, and kind of I'm more clear on the direction of where Decibel is going. And I hope the viewers also kind of learned a lot from this. And if you have any questions, you've heard the man. There's a Discord channel. He's in there. The team's in there. So you can chat with them, ask them questions. But Yeah, Kent, do you have any final remarks for people?
No, this is great. No, great. Glad we got together. Glad you learned. At least you learned. I think there's a lot more to talk about. I think there's a lot more to go in depth on the technical side, and we'll probably happy to do more content with you, Chris, or and stay tuned on the Twitter for some more content to drop on kind of some of the things we mentioned on how we're getting block time down and how we're thinking about how to make orders more efficient and all those things. But yeah, it was great, and thanks for taking the time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool.